Okay, here we have some problems in which we have to convert between the various forms that a number or a quantity can take. So we have fractions, we have decimals, we have percentages. Now, before we get started, let's look at the word percent. Percent literally means parts per 100. So when you see something like 47%, that means 47 parts per 100. Now there's a difference between number 1 and the other two problems, 2 and 3. In problem 2, we're starting with numbers, decimals. And in problem 3, we're starting with numbers as well, fractions. But in problem 1, we're not. A percentage is not a number. So if you're, let me erase these lines, if you're going to use a percentage in a calculation, it has to be converted to a number. And this is important moving forward. We're going to talk about interest and payments and things like this, and it's all based on percentages. And any calculation has to be done on numbers. So you could use a decimal. So if you're going to plug a number into a formula, it's got to be a decimal or a fraction. You can never plug in. So if you needed to use the number 47% in a problem, you cannot plug in 47. You'd have to convert this to a decimal. So, like I said, percent literally means per 100 or parts per 100. So you say X percent is the same as X over 100. So 47% is the same as 47 over 100. Now, fraction means division. So if you have a number over 100, that means you take that number and divide by 100. So in problem 1, we're going to need to take each one of these percentages and divide by 100. 6.62 divide by 100 and 0.12 divide by 100. And when you're dividing by powers of 10, so 10, 100, 1000, 10,000, and so on, it's very easy to do without a calculator because of the way our number system works. So you have this base 10 number system where every decimal place is the next power of 10. We have the ones place, the tens place, hundreds place, thousands place, and so on. So to divide a number by 100, you could simply move the decimal point 2 places. So when I say the decimal point, when you have a whole number, 47, that's the same as saying 47.0. Okay, so it's not, you're not going to see it written like this. You'll see it written like this, but what it actually means is 47.0. So there's a decimal point after the ones place. All right. So if we're dividing by 100, that means the number's getting smaller. That means the decimal point has to go 2 places to the left. So dividing by 100 means shifting the decimal point 2 places to the left. So this should be 0.47. Okay, same thing with the 6.62. So now when we move the decimal point 2 places to the left, or divide by 100, 1, and then there's another space we need here. So we need to fill in that space with a 0. So when we divide 6.62 by 100, you should get 0.0662. And this, you don't have to do it like this in your head, moving decimal places. You could use a calculator. Now, I'm highly recommending that you do not use a handheld or cell phone calculator for this chapter, for this topic. I'm recommending using the Desmos calculator. I have a link to it on Blackboard. And so when you open up Desmos, it works just like a regular calculator. You have an input here. You could use the keyboard down here. I might need to move it in a little bit so you can see the keyboard. All right, I mean, that's basically it. for these problems, it's no easier or harder than a handheld calculator, but later when we're starting to use more elaborate formulas for calculating things like interest and compound interest and monthly payments and things like this, you will find that Desmos is much easier than a handheld calculator. So if you wanted to do 6.62 divided by 100, that's 6.62. And there's our 0.0662. So my recommendation is start using Desmos for any calculation you need to do. If you have the homework open, have Desmos open in another tab or another window. Okay, so let's... All right, let's get that out of the way. Okay, and then same thing, whether you're moving the decimal point or dividing by 100, 2 decimal places to the left, 0.0012, and we divide 0.12 divided by 100. Okay, so now let me just rewrite this over so it's more room. So we said x percent equals x over 100, where x is the decimal and x percent is the percentage. Now, in problem 2, we're converting the decimal to a percent. So in problem 1, we're taking x percent and converting to a decimal. In problem 2, we're taking x as a decimal and converting to a percent. So if we take this this definition of the percent and then we multiply both sides by 100, we get 100 times x percent equals x, because these 100s cancel. Okay, so to convert a decimal to a percentage, we have to multiply by 100. That's what this is saying here. And just like dividing by 100 shifts the number by 2 decimal places, or shifts the decimal point to the left by 2 places, multiplying by 100 shifts the decimal point to the right by 100. So we'll take 0.21 times 100. We'll take 1.56 times 100. We'll take 0.00, yeah, one more 0.003 times 100. Okay, so that looks like 2 places to the right. This will be 21%. And with the 1.56, that will be 156%. And finally, times 100, 2 places over, 0.03%. Let me move this decimal point 2 places. Okay, and so the connection between percentages and decimals is that the number 1 is equivalent. I don't want to say equal, so I use 3 bars, so it means equivalent. We could say equal. It's not the most formal thing, but we could say equal. The number 1 is equal to 100%. And that's sort of our conversion. Okay, and now in number 3, now we have to convert a fraction to a percent. Well, so what we're actually going to do is start with a fraction, convert the fraction to a decimal, and then convert the decimal to a percent. Because this one's easier. Decimals and percentages, going back and forth here is easier because you're just moving a decimal point, either 2 places to the left or 2 places to the right. So and converting a fraction to a decimal is also easy. You just put it into the calculator. Remember, fraction means division, so 3/8 That's the same as saying 3 divided by 8. Now 8 over 7. 8 divided by 7. Now this last one, 2 and 2/5. Well, the word, when you read a mixed number, 2 and 2/5, the word and means plus, means addition. So 2 and 2/5, that's the same as saying 2 plus 2/5, which is 2 plus, and then the 2/5, to convert that fraction to a decimal, 2 divided by 5. Okay, so we'll convert these to decimals, and I'll use Desmos, of course. Always I'll use Desmos for these calculations. Okay, so we could add another line. 3 divided by 8. And now we're going to have to convert this decimal here to a percentage, and that means multiply by 100. So if you want, you could just move the cursor here, and then let me move this so you could see the buttons. And we could do times 100. And there's our percentage. So without the times 100, it was the decimal. With the times 100, it's the percentage. So 3 over 8 is 0.375 or 37.5%. And while the window's open, let's just do the other ones. Now you don't have to make a new line. You could replace what's on this line, but I'm just going to keep everything visible. 8 divided by 7. And we'll multiply this by 100. Actually, before we do this, actually this is probably important. Right here, where it says round to 3 decimal places. Round the percent to 3 decimal places. Rounding has to always be the last thing you do. It's the very last step in any problem is rounding. So over here on Desmos, let me bring the calculator back. Over here on Desmos, we did 8 divided by 7 and we got this long decimal. Do not round this to 3 decimal places. We're not done yet. We still have to make this a percentage. And once we're done all the conversions, all the calculations, everything else, the very last thing we do is round. So we'll take this and we'll times this by 100 to convert that decimal to a percent. Now this is what you want to round to 3 decimal places. Okay, so the 3 divided by 8, that was the 37.5%. And now for the 8 divided by 7, or the 8 over 7, we have 114.285714,286. So when we say round to 3 places, that means we're keeping 3 places after the decimal point. Which means we have to look at the 4th place, the next place after the last one we're keeping. And since it's, so over here we have, if you could see my cursor, 0.285, and now that cursor there is separating the first 3 decimal points from the first 3 decimal places from the next one. Since that next, or that first place we're not keeping is a 7, that means we have to round that 5 up to a 6. So 114.286. And that's 286%. Okay, and now for the last one, we said the mixed number 2 and 2/5 is 2 plus 2/5, and 2/5, the fraction is 2 divided by 5. So we could put that into the calculator. 2 divided by 5 is 0.4. So 2 and 2/5 is the same as 2.4. Okay. So now we want to convert that decimal to a percentage. So again, we times by 100, or move the decimal point 2 places, and we end up with 240%. Move the decimal point 2 places. Okay, so that does it for the first 3 problems. In the next video, I'll cover a couple more. I didn't want to put them all on one long, huge video, so I wanted to break it up.